about it's not just our language that we have to teach our children, it's the stories and the culture.
Sure, because if we lose our language, we'll probably lose the whole rest of our culture. It will become meaningless.
Winnebago back then was totally different than it is now. The tribal members that lived here were poor, were mistreated. Today, there's so much more positive things happening here on the reservation. I have friends that say they drove through and the only way they know it's a reservation is because it says you are now entering the Winnebago Indian Reservation. In other words, they said they would just think it as another community in the state of Nebraska. So
that's our granddaughter. She's gone through the St. Augustine school. So we learned something about it through her eyes. The history that I understand it is that Catherine Drexel and her family came through Winnebago on their way to the West Coast, and they stopped here because of a lawyer in Walt Hill that my great uncle Joe Lemire talked to him and said he has 7 daughters and 4 sons, and he'd like to have them educated in the Catholic school. He set up a meeting with Catherine Drexel somehow before she became a nun. A fellow named Little Priest. He was our last war chief. In the 60s, after they relocated here, he decided that he wanted to organize a group of men to join the military. They established a company named Company A of the Omaha Scouts. That was their title. And their mission was to escort wagon trains out to somewhere in Montana, and then also to the Oregon Trail, north to Powder River someplace. There's a fort there. That they would escort these wagon trains to those places, and then another group, I guess, would take over and escort them the rest of the way to the coast. Nobody seemed to bother them until this one time they were on the Powder River. Another group, a tribal group, attacked them, and Chief Little Priest, they killed the chief of that group, but he was wounded several times. And when they brought him back, he died here. Before he died, he said, would you educate my people? And then they decided to have a homecoming celebration for him every year since that time. So this is the oldest Veterans Memorial every last week of July. And it's been continuous since that time. And then to honor him and to all the other veterans that have passed on, we hoisted their funeral flag in the arena.
My mother went to school here. Well, her mother went to school here. And I've gone to school here, along with my children and grandchildren. I really strongly believe that our Lord is here at St. Augustine's. That's where I learned the word of the Lord, was here. I was baptized here. I received my first Holy Communion here. I was confirmed here. And what I learned here, I passed down to my children, my grandchildren, now my great-grandchildren.
I believe it was 1963 when I first came here to school. I had 2 older brothers and an adopted sister going to school here too. You know, we go to church, get up, go to church every day, sometimes twice a day, you know, and spoke Latin. A lot of the other kids from that were here, you know, were here on their own.
Well, one thing, it was the government, I'm going to blame the government, 1887 or so like that, tried to eliminate the culture. I believe it was one of the conditions for setting up missionary schools. They can do that as long as they enculturate the people, the students, into the American way of life, what they called. But the American way of life is diverse. At that time it was very diverse, and it still is. So they can still most people maintain their culture and their language, but it's still not being maintained here.
Times and age are different. When I came here, I had never seen a white person before, and all kinds of things that were shocking to me suddenly happened. But it was all for the good, because at that time and back in those days, and now that I understand more, my parents having such a large family of children, were having difficulty in providing for us and taking care of us and making sure that we got a good education. But they had to make a sacrifice too. My mother, I'm sure it was a big sacrifice to bring her children here and leave us in the care of the sisters, the nuns here. And I can remember the nuns taking us by the hand and taking care of us, being the youngest ones to arrive here. And fortunately, I had older brothers and a sister and cousins and relatives that some I had never met before. We're already here at St. Augustine's, and so it was a good experience. We lived together in dormitories, and it was the time of learning. I could say these sisters were amazing. The nuns here at St. Augustine's. Now that I think about it, now that I realize what tremendous obligation and what dedication they had to their service to St. Augustine's. They had a tremendous job, and I'm always thankful to them. We had a catechism class almost every day in school, learning about the Bible, learning about what Christmas was all about, what Easter was all about, resurrection, crucifixion. All those things combined go together in building character.
They got my parents to promise I would be baptized in the Catholic Church, and I was. As it turned out, that was the best thing anyone ever did for me. I didn't really try in school, but I did get religion, which was the best thing of all anyway. So
I always believed in Creator God taking care of us, no matter what. I came to school here when I was probably 8, and I was a boarder for a couple of years. My mother put me up here because her mother was getting old and she had to take care of her, so she kind of didn't have the time for me. So my older sister and I came up here. My older sister was 7 years older than I, and she came up here when she was just a little girl, and she couldn't even speak any English, but the sisters taught her. And what my mother told my daughter about the mission when she came here, it wasn't that bad when I came here. I remember getting my hair all shaved off once because I ran away with my older sister. So when we got back, they shaved our heads. But those were the only times I could think of. The other times were all I was taught. Today I'm happy that I was taught the things I was and helping the smaller children that were there at school. And I was just a child myself. My father was 50 years old when I was born. There were 16 of us children. I was the youngest daughter, and I had a little brother. My husband hardly ever went to church with me. It was me that took him every Sunday. No matter if we had to walk in the cold blizzard, we walked to church. And I think that's what's in her mind, because I was raised just like the two, how we have to go Indian and the white person's way. My father belonged to the Native American church. My mother was a Catholic. So I was bounced back and forth with this all my life, being Catholic, Native American church. Okay, my father lived to be 83, and before he passed, he said, I want you to go back to your own church where you were baptized when I'm gone. because that's where you were baptized, so you go there. And then I live in what he told me. I came back to the church. I never left the church. I was always there. Today I'm still there. After my husband passed, I became an oblate of St. Benedict. So I celebrated my 25th year as a Benedictine oblate last year. And that's my life. And I think that's what, keeps me intact, so close to God. So today, that's what I have. I guess I wouldn't have it any other way. On Native American and my belief, how I believe both ways. No one can take it from me. No. I had 7 children. I had 27 grandchildren. And I have 56 great-grandchildren and 13 great-great. And we're expecting like 6 more babies, and 1 is a great-great, and 5 are going to be greats.
Wow.
So I get to spend every day holding one of them. And that's my job today, my last job. Native Americans count as you're young, you're born, and you go to a teenager, you go to middle age, you get to the top. Okay, they say you made it to the hill, the 4th hill. We go through 4. Everything Native American do, it's 4, like the 4 directions, And so I said that to him when I turned 80. I said, well, I'm on that last hill. I'm going to coast in now. And that's the job the good Lord gave me now, taking care of my great-grandchildren. And I get to sit and hold my great-greats. And I have 2 great-greats coming to school here at St. Augustine's. So that's like 6 generations up here so far. Starting with my mother.